Australia's next 2 weeks look split in two. Heavy rains build throughout the east and the north, while much of the west stays dry, and that matters for flooding, field conditions, and fire risk. Let's check it out. Here's the big picture. Over the next 2 weeks, the biggest rainfall anomalies are focused on Queensland, the Eastern Northern Territory, and parts of the East Coast, while Western Australia stays much drier. That split also shows up in temperatures too, with cooler conditions favoured through much of the interior and warmer pockets more confined to the coastal areas. Hey guys, Fergus here with weathermapping.com, a Marcus Weather Inc. product. We're going to go region by region, where we see where the biggest rainfall totals sit, where the pattern's most unusual, and where cooler versus normal pockets line up. Watch out for Queensland and the eastern half of the Northern Territories, because this is where that forecast really stands out most clearly. On the first map we're looking at, the numbers are total forecasted precipitation in millimeters. If you prefer inches, roughly 25 millimeters is about an inch. We're looking at the full kind of forecast period here. Very simple. If you see a number like 25 millimeters, that's the total amount that will fall over the entire period. The second map we're going to look at is percentage of normal. This tells us how unusual the rainfall is. So if a place normally gets, again, 25 millimeters, but the forecast is 50, that's 200% of normal. The last map we're looking at is average temperature departure from normal. This is again looking how different the temperature is expected to be. So a figure of -2 means that period is running 2 degrees cooler than normal. And in early March, all three of these variables and viewpoints matter because in combination, we can analyze runoff, we can analyze soil moisture, access to fields, roads, fire risk, and flooding. The big national pattern here is very straightforward. The wet side of Australia is the north and the east. The dry side of Australia is Western Australia, especially the southwest and the interior west. On the temperature side, the interior generally leans cooler, while some coastal strips are a bit warmer. So the main constraints are east versus west, coast versus interior, and tropical north versus much drier southwest. Starting with Western Australia, the headline is light rainfall for much of the west and southwest. Around Perth, the southwest corner and much of the wheat belt and interior west, totals are generally very low, often in the single digits to teens, with a lot of areas only around 1 to 20 millimeters. Even where you do get some rain inland, it's not really a major soaking whatsoever. The exceptions to the far north, as you get up towards Kimberley, totals rise into the 60 to 140 millimeter range, with kind of local higher pockets near the far north coast and closer to the Northern Territory border. Into the Northern Territory, the split is north versus south. The top end is wet, with widespread totals around 80 to 200 millimeters, and some pockets locally higher than that. Around Darwin and eastwards towards the Gulf side, this is a meaningful amount of rain over a 2-week window. But as you move south through parts of the territory, the totals kind of ease back. Around Alice Springs corridor and further south, you're looking mostly lighter amounts, usually between 10 and 30 millimeters, with that wetter signal clearly concentrated farther north and east. Now moving into Queensland, which is the standout on the map, this is the wettest state in the forecast and not by a small margin. Across the far north and eastern Queensland, and especially the Gulf side, parts of the northeast and into sections of the east, the totals are running into nearly 300 millimeters in some places. Even outside of those extremes, broad parts of Queensland are carrying a wet signal. Centrally and eastern inland areas still pick up healthy amounts, and the southeast totals also trend wetter, with many areas seeing moderate to kind of local heavy downpours. Not good for Queensland. Obviously, they've had a lot of rain year to date, so this forecast is not what they want to see. For South Australia, the headline is mostly modest rainfall. Much of the state is on the lower side, especially away from the southeast. A lot of inland South Australia sits around that 5 to 20 millimeter range. Even the southern belt is mostly moderate rather than truly wet compared to the north and the east. This is not where that kind of main action is for rainfall. For New South Wales and Victoria, Rainfall is more respectable. Inland New South Wales generally picks up around 20 to 50 millimeters, while coastal and nearby coastal zones are in that 50 to 90 millimeter range. Victoria is not especially wet, but it's not dry either. Many areas come in around 20 to 45 millimeters, with some eastern and coastal pockets higher. So the southeast gets useful rain, just not on the same scale as Queensland or the top end. Finally, Tasmania looks fairly balanced, moderate totals rather than any extremes. Much of the island sits around kind of 35 to 50 millimeter range, so more manageable rainfall than any sort of major event. Now, the second map changes the question. This is not how much rainfall falls, but it's how the rain compares to what's typical for this time of year. And that matters because 40 millimeters can be a lot in one place, but not a lot in another. The broad picture here gets even sharper. Western Australia is the clear below normal side of the country. The north and the east are decisively above normal. Queensland again is that main standout where the forecast isn't just wet, but unusually wet for this time period. Back to Western Australia first. Much of the west is running well below normal. Large areas, only around 10 to 50% of normal, and there are pockets that are lower than that, especially through parts of the southwest and west coast, where those numbers drop into the single digits. That tells us here that the dryness is not just about low totals, but it's just abnormally dry relative to what March should usually bring. The far north is less extreme, with some areas closer to normal or even kind of modestly above, but the broader western signal is still dry. Across the Northern Territory, much of the territory is above normal, especially central and eastern sections, a wide area running roughly 140 to 200% of normal, with some local pockets pushing even higher. Even the top end, which already climatologically is wet for this time of year, still comes in meaningfully above average in many areas. So this is not just a seasonal tropical rain doing seasonal tropical rain things. In many places, it's a stronger than usual setup. Queensland really jumps off the map here, which is not good news at all. Broad parts of the state are running at 200 to 500% of normal, and there are kind of local pockets that are even higher. That means that some areas could see 2 or 3 or even 4 or 5 times the amount that they usually get in this mid-March period. That's a strong signal, and it tells us that the east and the north are not just wet in an absolute sense, they are wet relative to the seasonal baseline. And in Queensland, that signal is particularly strong, even from the interior east through the north to parts of the coast. For South Australia, the picture is a bit more mixed. Generally still kind of near normal, above normal in eastern and southern sections. Western parts of the state are less impressive, while farther east the anomalies improve. So South Australia isn't really a major wet outlier, but it's not really carrying a strong negative signal either that we see in Western Australia. For New South Wales and Victoria, much of the region tends to be above normal, many areas around 130 to 220% of normal, with a few local corridors that are higher than that. So even where totals are not huge in a national sense, the rain that does fall is still meaningful relative to March norms. That matters for short-term soil moisture recovery and even keeping the eastern side of the country more active than the west. Tasmania, mostly near normal to above normal. Generally less dramatic signal than Queensland, but still kind of tilted to that wetter angle. Now we shift from moisture to temperature, and this is where the rainfall pattern really shows up in another way. The main national signal here is a cooler interior with some warmer coastal strips on the west and the east side. In Western Australia, there's a clear contrast. Parts of the west coast and nearby coastal zones run a bit warmer than average, often around half a degree to 1 to 1.5 degrees above normal, with some local higher pockets. But once you move inland and northward, the signal flips. Interior and northern sections trend cooler, often around 1 or 2 degrees below normal. So Western Australia isn't uniformly warm, it's a coast versus interior split. Northern Territory is one of the clear cool anomalies in the country. Much of the territory is running around 1.5 to 3 degrees Celsius below average, with some strong cooler pockets in the central and eastern parts. Lines up well with the wetter, cloudier setup we saw on the rainfall maps. More cloud, more showers, Wetter ground usually makes it harder for those daytime temperatures to run higher. In Queensland, the interior and north are mostly above normal, often around half a degree to nearly 3 degrees, kind of below average, depending on the location. But the coast is a different story. Parts of the east coast and southeast Queensland edge closer to normal or slightly above it. So again, the main contrast is interior versus coast. Inland areas lean cool under the wetter pattern, while some coastal areas are a little warmer. For South Australia, New South Wales and Victoria, the picture is kind of mixed, but still understandable. Inland South Australia and Western New South Wales lean cooler than average, generally around half a degree to 2 degrees, but farther east, especially along parts of New South Wales coast into the southeastern pockets, temperatures turn slightly above average. Victoria is mixed overall with some cool modest anomalies inland, milder positive departures closer to the coast. So, the southeast is not dominated by one clear signal, it's kind of a blend with cooler interior zones and somewhat warmer pockets coastally. In Tasmania, temperatures are fairly close to normal, with some slight warmth in the east and southern areas with a few slight cooler pockets elsewhere. Nothing extreme here. So when you combine the three maps, the story is kind of coherent. The wetter than normal north and east tends to line up with cooler than normal inland temperatures, while the much drier west, especially near the coast, avoids that cooling influence and runs a bit warmer in places. What are the likely impacts here? Well, the setup's fairly clear. First, parts of Queensland and the eastern half of the Northern Territory have elevated runoff risks, standing water, transportation, fieldwork disruptions, even heaviest rain repeats are going to lead to more flooding than they've already seen. Second, the wetter than normal pattern across much of the east should support soil moisture improvements and kind of reduce fire weather pressure compared to Western Australia. Third, the cool inland temperatures may ease heat stress and reduce evaporation rates, but it also means slower drying after rainfall. Again, we could see more local flooding impacts due to that. The conditional part here is important. If the heaviest Queensland rain bands stall or repeat over the same corridor, we're going to get far bigger flooding issues, and it could become the big story here. If they sort of focus on one area, because it's kind of already at just extremely high totals for the year, we could see flooding very quickly. On the other side of the country, though, if Western Australia misses even the light totals that are shown here, then dryness and fire concerns could build very fast compared to what the map already suggests. If you like these videos and you want to see some more, please subscribe to the Weather Mapping YouTube channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Laters.
Weathermapping.com